Alright, I won't say it doesn't make sense to me that people condemn Bernie Sanders and people do rally behind this tag that he's been given, a communist, socialist, like everybody throwing these very American negative connotations at Bernie Sanders, and the flood of, I won't say Republican, we'll describe it as right-wing commentary on Bernie Sanders and on Democrats and liberals shower social media with this conception of him as a crazy kook. The links that, if you really do, and I'm not only referencing independent and liberal as well, independent and liberal and individual political accountants that's come through before our eyes, we see news channels, media, conservative and right-wing media, talking heads, political personalities, all doing one of two things: ignoring Bernie Sanders completely. Silence, slave. Doing one of two things: ignoring Bernie Sanders completely, giving him a total blackout of coverage in the presidential race, focusing on personal disagreements and personality conflicts between either the conservative candidates, the Republican candidates, or talking about Hillary Clinton. Now, it is my hope that this continual wave of sweeping victories for Bernie Sanders does continue. He becomes the Democratic nominee. He is stacked against either Ted Cruz or Donald Trump and defeats them and becomes the president. Now, there is a lot on the line if this happens. To me, no, it's not a big deal. I hate it. I hate it when I see page names with the word Republican or conservative or savage. No, like a politically themed Facebook group or page that offers through video and post and shares and memes that communism and socialism would be the death of America. Free doesn't mean free. You know, trampling on our rights, on our amendments. You know, like this slew of very bullshitical, nonsensical, I refer to them simply as Seussical. They're Seussical arguments on why we shouldn't be a socialist nation, why we shouldn't be a communist nation, why there shouldn't be. The argument is this: all of my compatriots on Facebook who do discuss with me on from time to time social events and the reason why things are how they are and how they should be in our own meager opinions. But if the wages paid, not just at the basal rate, but a government constructed and government administered wage tier, including the service industry, including what we would consider minimum wage jobs, hourly jobs, part-time, full-time, and only the private sector can negotiate, because we have to still let them be rich and powerful. You have to let the people that are super rich and powerful still be rich and powerful. But the goal is giving them riches and power in exchange for certain inalienable rights. When the Constitution, when the government speaks of upholding and promulgating the idea, the ideology of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness being the core of American lifestyle, you need to support life. You need to foster liberty, and you need to enable the pursuit of happiness. Those are your 3 responsibilities that come with all of the authority of being a member and, in general, as a concept, the government. You mean to tell me that with all of the with all of the industries as a whole and as a myriad, with all of the construction companies throughout both private, corporate, good Lord. Okay. Just waiting for it. You know what I should have done was turn my ringtone down to nothing there. So that's what I'll do. Just to save you guys out there. You know, I want to make America great again. Okay? Let's get back to the seriousness of which I try to impart to you right now. Bernie Sanders at the helm of a socialist government would make sure that... Now, I really think it's weird that people don't think America could be communist. Why America wouldn't be the best at communism? Huh? With a core of elites up at the top living in crazy luxury, while instead of serfs and bombed out, starved Americans, the new Americans, the feral Americans, the savages, right? Or something like that. No. While the super rich and elite and powerful pull the strings and are the puppet masters up top and, you know, live declaring level. Hashtag Rick and Morty. We would all eat until we are no longer hungry at any time during the day, drink until we are no longer thirsty, until we are, in fact, hydrated with healthy water. That power is not a struggle, and it's not a gripe. It's not a source of agony. Bills are not a source of agony. Because when the government, not that the government owns this massive slew of American corporations, but regulates them. Not in the failed way that we have regulated certain financial aspects in the past, but when there's, for example, based on your preferred geological location, either a house or an available to you, because the construction industry used by the government completes our infrastructure repair rate. Our maintenance rate is fulfilled. Our new construction projects blossom because we're vectoring all the resources as necessary. On naval bases, I used to see the signs when they would either remodel or expand on a naval exchange, which is a store. Pardon my sniffling, too. I just don't have anything to blow my nose with right now. Sucks, bro. And it would say, we're paying $6,982 for your convenience to remodel for you. And it would be nice when it was done. But I just started thinking to myself during the prep for this little freestyle that if the government was in charge of building housing areas, commercial areas, industrial areas, and it did so by utilizing the collective effort of construction companies and construction and labor unions to fill every necessary spot, and the fact that there is housing available and is contested and the market is competitive, when there is a fraction, a recognizable, noticeable, palpable fraction of our American United States population that does not live in a house, they're homeless, through whatever means, there's no reason for that. And especially with work being revectored through the government, our jobs being very much in a better place to be analyzed if it's all collected and summed up in, as we already have, the Bureau of Labor, the Department of Labor. would be a massive government. I mean, there would be triple to quadruple the employees it has now, simply to keep the analyticals in line of knowing. And the fact that we live in an age of internet connectivity, what a way to bring technological corporations into the mix by putting server farms all across the nation, by building communications relays, the ability to have not just power, which there are many power companies that are doing it in similar ways, different ways, across the nation. We bring them in under this labor department. Now, I'm not saying we're absorbing these companies, but by allowing all of the baseline foundation standards for life to be met through power, water, food, connectivity, information, education, which no more griping and complaining about at all about free higher education. Now, the fact that you can opt to pay to go to a private institution does not mean that government-run school, federally owned school, should fall by the wayside at any means. The amount of money we should be pouring into education, from pre-K into federal universities, state colleges, should be the equivalent of defense spending and more. Now, if you're talking to me, if I'm the president, and I can't say this for Bernie Sanders, but if I'm president, I am going to sell or lease all of the land I have bought for military installations across the world. Across the world. So many of them are not built in places we should be. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. So many of our bases, so much of our government-owned property on land that is outside the continental United States. Now, Alaska, we keep it, whatever. There's no reason, there's nobody to give it back to. The people that are there without us being there, I mean, let me not speak on the state of Alaskan affairs, but I will put a blatant jab out with that if that's the only way to get rid of Sarah Palin, I'll take it. Okay, I hear people defending her even to this day, and I just wonder, what are you watching? What are you listening to? If that's your only frame of reference, that has to be the only way that's stacked against all the other people that are speaking out in the political and socio-ideological realm. And that is the one you choose to go with and defend, then you can't even be in the discussion with us anymore. You have to be in the discussion so you learn, but you can't be here with us anymore. You have to be in another booth, and we'll feed it to you until you're ready, until you finally push the button that releases the door. Even though it's not locked, you can leave at any time. Push the button, release the door, and say, come sit with us. We have comfy chairs. We make sense when we speak because we talk about things logically in a base format. This is what makes sense. We have the capability, and we generate the waste. Why do we generate the waste? Because of economic restrictions. How many people you've bought an album, you've listened to music, you have looked at a picture or a portrait or a photograph, you have heard the words of, or you have had your path crossed by somebody who has been thoroughly broken and destroyed by their life. And they have come to this point, they have been reborn by whatever means, and they are now a good person, and they give back through lessons in which they impart on people. And, people in DARE, I had prior criminals, I had prior or current drug users, recovering alcoholics, all kinds of people come across my path in my education through DARE, through school assemblies, motivational speakers that turned it around and want to provide that lesson. That's what America is. America has gone into the bad on so many topics that it's up to us, really in 2016, before people start destroying the world for real, before nukes start going off in unconventional means, before war breaks out, before personal disagreements between members of different governments come together and, hate on each other, bash one another's, God forbid, their conceptual honor, and they just have a bad relationship. So the threat of millions to billions of lives being destroyed is a possibility. Inconceivable in the modern age. It would not stand in my presidency. It will not stand in the presidency of a worthwhile president. There will be no walls being built until, let me tell you what, the first part of the wall that's built across Mexico better come from the Statue of Liberty, and it has to be torn down, and the plaque thrown into the sea, dude. Thrown into the waters off Ellis Island. Because we have abandoned it fully. We have abandoned it fully when we have walls, when we are stopping refugees from wars, and not wars. Go to that level. Hold on here. Hold on a second. I'm getting pinged. Okay, so I know that was a pause for you guys, but that was like 10 whole minutes for me dealing with the end of the workday. We're back. We're continuing on. Yes, I stand firm by that statement, and I think I'll pop that into a meme and send that around and see what how many people hate on that. But I have a much more positive feeling that people will just enjoy it. But I think this is an opportunity to just found my campaign for president in the year 2024, because that is when I will constitutionally be authorized to run based on the age requirements. I am a citizen. I meet all of the prerequisites beyond contestation, and it's on. I will have as my VP from the start Andy Matthews, who should be listening to this right now. Maybe not now when you're listening to it, but Andy, surprise, we're P and VP, bro. And I really think we could enforce because here's the deal, people would, just like now, fight back against the title of communist or socialist. They are comfortable with capitalism. Based on the education given to me in public school, I was only ever educated officially during compulsory education to the understanding that the bad government forces leading up to the 90s when I was in school, based off the Cold War, the Vietnam War, the Korean War, Operation Desert Storm, World War II, and World War I, just the state of the world and the need for large militaries and how it could happen again, and how communism was a breeding ground for slaughter, genocide, lawlessness, corruption. It is real talk that when I say 0 is the number, how many communist or socialist governments. I didn't learn anything about socialist governments in Europe and how their system of education stacks up, and their medical field with state provided healthcare stacked up. Now there are people's counterpoints to why that's a good thing. I've heard an argument made on conservative talk radio that is possible because they have very low military budgets and we've been covering their back. Well, let me tell you something. When we rake in cumulative trillions of dollars from the lease of our naval sites, our Air Force and Army sites, built as well as they are with, shadows of our what you give to the product is the land, possibly even the hardware stripped down if you have old models that we already sell to other countries. Pardon me, sell that off, sell off our inventory, while we're there, lease the land out to other countries that can then move their own facilities in there. The United States Army and United States Marine Corps never leave the continental United States. If you're asking me if I think we could sustain the amount of troops, I think with the conventional forces, the regular forces becoming a true national guard, we now have trained, employed, educated soldiers, airmen, and sailors mingled in with the population. bringing all the specialty training to these communities, again, where they belong. Because with Seabees and the Army Corps of Engineers and all of these technical rates receiving their same training, now the Navy would ideally operate 100 miles of the continental United States. If this calls for what I would see as a burst in job availability by building new facilities to house military preparedness equipment and personnel all across the United States to strengthen our concept of control over ourselves, we know that we are not exerting force or broadcasting enmity to any other region or any other country. There's no reason why they should think America's a looming threat. Our expenditure on reparations and reconstruction in many areas around the world will hang over our heads. And I would love to say only our heads, not the heads of our children and grandchildren. But the debt that we have incurred with our military operations, myself as a former service member and a full patriot, a full American patriot, going from the concept and the ideology laid down when America was created as an ideal and founded as a country. We have learned from our past and have come to a point now where we should not be discussing slavery. Slavery should be an educational, historical concept that we don't forget. The modern conceptual conversation of relations between African Americans, African-descended Americans brought here en masse during the period of slavery there is your reparation is being a citizen of what the United States was meant to be, which when food is on every table, drink is in every belly, a roof is over every Jesus, man. When a roof is over every head, then we start to work on the things that divide us ideologically. Now, the fact that God can be found in so many different ways, so many individual, diverse, rainbow, miraculous ways. My phone's blowing up again, pardon me. That churches, chapels, cathedrals, mosques, temples, and respect-paying venues to every god that is worshipped or appreciated by any American citizen across the country. Now, I understand that culturally there are some areas that identify very strongly with other religions, but shouldn't you be confident enough in your faith and your love in God that you could accept people also loving and fulfilling the lifestyles of peace and prosperity and constructiveness of their version, their name for God, their God, alongside you in a community? Shouldn't that bolster a community and make it richer? Yes, it should. If you don't agree with these things, then you're a fucking idiot. I'm sorry. There's no room, there's no time. We've done it long enough and it's been very damaging. There's no room for idiocy any longer. And I feel like idiots should have to leave the United States. And if you don't agree with me on that statement, then you either don't know what I mean by an idiot or you are an idiot. And therefore, I don't blame you for not understanding. And if you don't keep up, Junior, we'll still love you. We're still going for ice cream after Chuck E. Cheese. Now, my first thought, as I begin to get on the road, and we'll cut this off and we'll come back at it a little bit later on, but I'm heading home, and I feel like everybody should be able to say that at the end of the day. For our collective expenditure, now this comes with the streamlining of civic services, where why shouldn't there be a very satisfying per capita quotient for civic services. The justice system, the legal system, I would say, healthcare system, and there could be more that fit in there. I mean, I'm thinking firefighters, police officers, emergency response personnel, as well as at least a small cadre of physical medical professionals per capita. And I'm talking about when the government builds a huge civic service complex, it's not an impending thing. There's plenty of open space almost everywhere. And by knocking down what's old and what's unnecessary and putting up what's new, you need a hell of a lot of hands that are then earning the healthcare and the civic protections and the benefits of the administrative authority and responsibility of the government. And as a president over a socialist America, Bernie Sanders as a democratic socialist, or myself, ideally, which I'm embodying here, we cut costs in very sensible ways. Worldwide deployments of everyone. More blown up. Hold on. Okay. The collective input of everyone means that, when you're taking people off the streets, when you are... Here's the deal, man. If you get caught being a junkie, if you get caught being a miserable alcoholic, your choice of how to spend the time that you're alive is on you. If a cop pulls you over and you're effed up and you get tested and you got heroin or meth in your system, you were driving drunk, you got to go to rehab. Government mandates like an 8-week rehab course that is hardcore, no corruption, not privately owned. It's almost like being in prison, but the point is to cure you, force you through the withdrawals of this drug, educate you on everything about it, on the negative things that you're doing to yourself, be seen to medically and released back out into the population with the help and the resources you need. We can generate these resources, we can generate the structure. It's a matter of doing it. It's a matter of it not, it's just getting old. It's getting old, and I think so many people out there agree with me, agree with Bernie, have voted for Bernie, like myself, and most of the people that would sit down and listen to a video titled whatever this is going to be titled. But I'm trying to attract the right attention and get enough people involved in a real discussion. I want to sit down, ideally, with across from the people who push a agenda of conflict, and that's a very general statement, but you can identify somebody who's in the realm of politics that says, we need to be afraid of this is a huge problem, this can't be done, it has to stay this way, these people have to remain where they are, and knowing that you're full of shit. Like, America's America, and America really could be what it was meant to be. It's understandable, and you can answer your own question if you ask how America became this way. You just read where we've been, and the victor writes the history in the most part, and for the most part, throughout human written legacy, all the way back to what we think is the beginning for most of us. But in the end, dude, like the last 20 years, it's been easy to let everybody know who's connected to a network what's going on. And you get the video, you get the actual portrayal of what's going on, you get the audio that people have been heard creating, and you get textual leaks, you get all of this information about what's going on. And in this day and age, you can't get away with it. And you just see people that are trying to run our entire country and represent us internationally to other whole communities of people numbering hundreds of millions to billions. These people are arguing with each other like petty children. They're throwing accusations, they're making laughable smear ads, and they've just been caught with their hands in the cookie jar so many times taking money and wielding influence in a poor way that doesn't represent the rest of us. But one of them hasn't, and that happens to be Bernie Sanders. So what's the question?